can't expect prosperity from God. Ladies and gentlemen. So this is a quotation done by one of our most famous educationist, author, Muridasa. So Sri Lanka speaks about innovation, full of innovation from nearly 2,500 history. Sri Lanka is the breeding ground of where we call this nanotechnology. The earliest records of nanotechnology came in Sri Lanka. So if you can maybe search and see, the nanotechnology that started from Sri Lanka. So it's not that innovation and this entrepreneurship is in our blood. But today, when you look at the global innovation index, Sri Lanka is at the 90th position out of 100 countries. So we are like backbenchers. If you really look at the high-tech exports in Sri Lanka, high-tech exports, as a percentage of total export, it's only 1% in Sri Lanka. I mean, it's nothing to do with any governments here. If you look at the figure in 1970s, it was 1%. So it has not changed. Whereas countries like South Korea, where one of our speakers are here, today is 42% high-tech exports as a percentage of total exports. And Singapore, it's almost 50%. So is it something related to that lack of knowledge? Not really. I'm working at the University of Morocco, Sri Lanka's MIT, I would say. And we see people who are going from Morocco doing the coding of Google X. I met two people from Google X, Sri Lankan engineers. I almost bumped into Astro Taylor months ago. And they are working together with these people. So it's nothing to do with practice knowledge. But in this entire, all about this startup ecosystem, there is lacking pieces in the entire jigsaw puzzle. There's certain lacking pieces. Now, a lot of Sri Lankan, I would say, we started with ICTA, SLASCOM, and various corporates have done a lot in this country to bring this entrepreneurship bus or this startup bus. I think we are in the right time now, thanks to these government agencies, these corporates, and some non-governmental organizations. They have done a lot, but still we see this missing piece. So we are and we came to an understanding that what is lacking is long-term integrated platform from very grassroots level to be able to reach global scale. So ladies and gentlemen, Venture Frontiers Lanka, today what we are launching is about that. So it's not only me, there's a lot of people behind this. We have one of the best person from the government as a patron of this initiative, Dr. Harsha Silva, Honorable MP and the Minister. And then we have EDB as the government sponsor, Export Development Board. Then we have LOLC as our corporate partner. And many organizations already behind this initiative, so it's not just me. And also we have a global advisory board. We can detail out that in our next presentations. Global as well as local heavyweights in our advisory board. So let me welcome all of you today, this launch event of Venture Frontier Lanka. And hope you will enjoy tonight, and after the session also we'll have some networking event as well. So thank you very much for coming today, and I'm trying to meet you all, each and everyone after the session. Thank you very much.
You guys hear me for that? So they told me I could talk for a bit and to share my experiences. I'm not sure if they're going to like it, but here's what I have to say. So personally, you can definitely hear that. I won't use any more P words. Personally, I think words like entrepreneurship and innovation are overhyped. Lots of people in Sri Lanka are entrepreneurs, from the Mumbai Thailand to a family running a cafe, but they don't make a big fuss about it. If you want to publicly burn a lot of money doing something self-indulgent and dumb, you can call yourself an entrepreneur and be proud of it. Innovation is also something that I think is overhyped. Most companies that make money do it by doing something boring repetitively, along with a bunch of similar competitors. Most innovations you see that are fun or interesting are burning investor cash and either die or start to suck once they hit market realities. Besides that, like genetic mutations, most innovations are useless or destructive and do not and should not survive. If you can't tell, I've been in the Sri Lankan startup community for almost 6 years now, and I'm a bit jaded. Aside from startups being difficult anywhere, Sri Lanka is especially horrible for a few reasons. One thing is just the talent problem. Sri Lanka has a higher education that actively makes people less employable. It's one of the few countries in the world where as you get a higher education level, you get higher unemployment. Statistically, you're actually better off dropping out of school before your O-levels, which I don't necessarily advise, but after your O-levels is fine. That's enough to become a member of parliament for most people, except for our doctor here. I would say, worst of all, we waste our young people's time. Every time I talk to a young person and I ask them what they're doing, they say, I'm studying, and I feel bad because, why? For most people in the local school system, if you study hard and do everything you're supposed to, you get screwed at the end. We do not have room in our universities for all the people that deserve a university education. And once you get in, you spend half your time on strike, like now, for example. This program is supposed to go to universities, but they're on strike right now. When graduates get out, they find themselves older and less employable than rich kids like me who study abroad or go to private colleges or who just went to Royal and St. Thomas. I say this, I guess that's also a bit of a dig at the government, but I say this not to go on about the education system, but just to remind you that Silicon Valley didn't come out of nowhere. People didn't just sit around and chant the mantra, innovation, disruption, entrepreneurship, until startups popped out of the ground. As a valley, it was surrounded by mountains, the biggest one being Stanford and other amazing universities. They also had an immigration policy, which Sri Lanka completely lacks, that attracted the best global talent and made the local talent better. Sri Lanka today is not a valley surrounded by mountains of solid education and industry. We are both literally and figuratively an island surrounded by water. Until we build a much deeper infrastructure that creates and attracts talent, we will not be competitive with the world, and startups will struggle. Another issue that people always talk about is investment. So there's definitely very little investment in the startup system in Sri Lanka. I know because I've been looking for it. But honestly, it's hard to tell people to invest in startups when you can get a 14% return on a fixed deposit and more on property. So many people say lack of investment is the cause of the problem, but I think it's just a symptom. And people not investing in startups is a rational response. Startups are insane. The biggest practical problem is simply that our local market is way too small. Our addressable market is smaller than a mid-tier Indian city. We simply don't have enough users or money for startups to attract and scale investment. Finally, Sri Lankan companies have to compete globally, especially online. At Yahoo, when we started, I initially thought our competition would be other websites, but it's not. Our competition is Facebook and Google, which sucks because they're huge. And in terms of advertising, they are killing us and possibly society. If you're a startup, you're competing with the world, And being in Sri Lanka is, for the reasons I discussed earlier, a disadvantage. The Sri Lankan passport is ranked worse than North Korea's, which kind of tells you our competitive standing in the world. So thank you very much for attending this launch of Venture Frontier Lanka, but I think you should all give up and go home. No, I'm just, maybe I'm not kidding, but no, I'm just kidding. Look, starting a startup is nuts. You either have to be dumb enough to not care about all the stuff I just mentioned, or crazy enough not to, you have to be dumb enough to not think of all the disadvantages I mentioned, or crazy enough not to care. The default condition in a startup is struggle. And the default exit isn't like an IPO or tons of money, the default exit is failure. Given my experience, I cannot in good faith recommend this life to anyone. Just go away, do something else. If you insist on hanging around, trying your dumb idea in this impossible market, these people at Venture Frontier Lanka will help you. This government will also try to help you for as long as they exist. I mean, they're kind of a startup themselves. It could be 2 weeks, it could be 2 years, who knows? No, you should vote for them. The other people are worse, but yeah. I know this sounds pessimistic, but that's where startups start. A startup begins with a problem that seems impossible and an idea that seems stupid. A startup ecosystem involves just a lot of people doing this over and over and failing while connecting with each other and the global community and learning until something breaks through. So will Venture Frontier Lanka be the startup program that finally breaks through? I honestly don't know, but they're good people. They have good connections, at least for a year or two, and I can't think of anyone better than Heminder to give it a shot. It only takes one huge success to make all the losses disappear. That's the game here. That's ultimately the power of words like entrepreneurship and innovation. These are fundamentally empty words, but you sometimes get a company or an organization that fills them up 100 times and makes it all worthy and attractive for the next 99 fools. So here's to being the one that breaks through. As hard as it is, I am crazy and dumb, and I think Sri Lanka can do it. Here's to the success of Venture Frontier Lanka and all the ventures they will launch, as improbable as they are. And that's all from me. And so next is a speech from our chief guest, Dr. Harsha De Silva. He's State Minister of something long that I can't remember, and in our hearts, he's the State Minister of Twitter.
Somebody get a hold of this man. Don't let him run away. I got news for you, boy. I came in a white van. I'm actually totally surprised. I walked in here, I thought without Facebook, without WhatsApp, this place will be empty. Look at the crowd. Fantastic. So, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it's indeed a real pleasure to be here this evening to participate in the launch of Venture Frontier Lanka. When I first spoke to Heminder, and this was just a tiny idea, and speaking to Heminder was after I had met OviBees. I couldn't even pronounce his name. So who is this guy? What the hell is he talking to me about? But it's gone a long way, and I'm really proud to be here to champion this. And you call me, what did you call me? Patron. And I, once again, congratulate you guys for having brought that idea to what this launch is about today. First of all, Mangala was supposed to be here. He was to share his best wishes and ideas, but he's got chicken pox. No, seriously. So it's going to be a while before he's back in action. Hopefully next week. He sends his best wishes to you. I like to start with a personal anecdote. So I got my degree, etc., came home, went through a rigorous interview process, and the other guy who were shortlisted, the last two, he had a PhD from France and I had one from America. And the company that I joined thought that I had more capitalistic ideas than the other guy. He remains a very good friend of mine, writes to the papers all the time, criticizing capitalism. And I'm glad that they didn't hire him, but me. So my first day at the job, some guy called me, "Come here." He was in a big room, and I went there. He said, "Who are you?" So I was very upset. I said, "I'm the new economist." "Didn't you know?" "No." Anyway, "What are you going to do?" I said, "Sir, we're going to evaluate project proposals and give them loans to start companies and expand their projects and so on." "Really? This is a development bank, huh?" And the guy said, "So how do you do that?" So I said, "This is how you do it." I, try to sort of show him I knew these things. And I said, then he said, "I say, stop, man, that's not how you give loans." Then I said, "Sir, how do you give loans?" I say, you just find out what the collateral is and you give the man a loan. This is a true story. The man's name is Kingsley Fernando. Don't mind sharing the name, because whenever I see him, I relate this story. And that was many years ago. And I don't know whether it has changed much since. I worked in that bank for 3 years, left it, took a risk with someone else, and started a small company. It was a success, paid off, sold it to a big American firm, and went on to do what I really wanted to do: development economics, policy, and now this new startup with the new government. And I always thought, if I got a chance, that I would do two things. First one was to start an ambulance service, which I have successfully done. 60,000 people already taken to hospital in emergencies. And I'm glad to announce that the island-wide, and I will make sure all 21 million people of this country will have access to a fully equipped ambulance and an emergency medical technician within 12 minutes by the end of this year. And the other is to help startups, to do what I can do, to change policy, to help people succeed. Because I took a risk, and I was lucky enough to be one of the few, perhaps they say only 2 out of 10 succeed. I'm not a big entrepreneur like many of you here, but in my small way. Entrepreneurship is crucial for a country's prosperity. Our government's vision for 2025 is to create a knowledge-based, highly competitive social market economy at the center of the Indian Ocean. To achieve prosperity for our people, we need to create jobs. And not just any jobs, but jobs that pay well. For this, we need entrepreneurs, we need startup businesses. Entrepreneurs who set up small and medium enterprises are, in my mind, really the true engines of growth. So many of them. Startups are disruptive, innovative, dynamic, and having been in startups, continuing to be in one according to Hindi, it's a lot of fun too. The jobs that we want created are ones of high value, high skill, and high pay. But the data does not paint a rosy picture about entrepreneurship in Sri Lanka. The Department of Census and Statistics suggests that only 2.8%, or roughly 230,000 people of Sri Lankan working population are employers or business owners. And compare this with what I found on Global Entrepreneurship Monitor. In Thailand, 27.5% of adult population are owner-managers of established businesses, making it the second most entrepreneurial country in the world. Roughly 13 million folks in Thailand. Vietnam has a business ownership rate of 19.6%. In Brazil, 16.9%. Indonesia, 15.3%. Bangladesh, a country that opened up just recently, 11.6%, and China, 7.5%. Considering the population of these countries, the level of entrepreneurial activity in these economies is staggering, and compare that with Sri Lanka of 2.8%. Now, what do Sri Lankan entrepreneurs need to catch up? I listen to people from all over the country, and I know that they have the raw skills, the talent, and revolutionary ideas that are the basis for successful entrepreneurship. But this is not enough. Besides finance, they need training, mentoring, guidance, like Heminder said, the whole ecosystem from the beginning to the end, on how to do their market research to figure out what, how much, and when to produce. I always worry about the Sri Lankan farmer. Why is the Sri Lankan farmer so poor? Is it because he doesn't work hard? Is it because he doesn't have the skills? No. I believe it is because of asymmetry of information. How much to produce, what to produce, when to produce, the farmers do not know. I saw a photograph in the Lanka 2 weekends ago. Tons and tons of vegetables thrown outside the Dambula market for the elephants. Farmer does not have a price to sell his produce. He goes home empty-handed and has to sell everything he owns to make ends meet. Now, somebody's got to think about that problem. Somebody here perhaps may have ideas on how to forecast, how to determine what, how much, and when to produce. Then how to structure their projects, how to brand and market their products. And of course, they need innovative financing. A 2017 survey by Slascom had showed that startups which received external funding show a higher growth rate than startups funded through their personal savings. But aspiring entrepreneurs did say adequate access to debt capital was a major obstacle to them. When I sit with ministers and officials and listen to the discussions on growth and wealth creation in Sri Lanka, always I hear the word bank. Then I hear banks are only lending to those with collateral and not willing to take risks. And my personal anecdote was about that. Sometimes no risk at all. Even the foreign exchange risk is taken by the government of Sri Lanka. They have guarantees by the treasury, they have guarantees by the sovereign, they have guarantees from everyone. but they still want a massive risk premium, if at all they want to lend. Then I hear from the bankers that they must protect depositors and they can only take calculated risks. But who calculates? What are the risks they take? But what returns do they get? Banks make billions. We all know that. But those who need the funds from the banks hardly get any. In fact, even as recently as this Monday, I had quite an argument with some bank CEOs on funds for startups and SMEs. A recent IPS study quoting an IFC survey showed that of their SME sample, 77% required medium and long-term financing. Of them, of the 77, only 53% approached a bank and only 29% got anything. So you see what a complicated problem that we are facing. The startup business model requires banks and finance companies to adopt a different attitude to financing. And it requires newer models like venture capital and angel financing. It needs investors who have the mentality of embracing risk and expecting 8 of 10 of the investments to fail. To encourage entrepreneurship, your government has to deliver on better and more consistent policies. And let me tell you that. We are striving to have a better doing business climate. Many changes are being done. By 31st March, we are attempting to meet some of the tough targets. I have been given the responsibility about 2 months ago, 1.5 months ago, to try and accelerate this exercise. And I'm hopeful that by the next doing business survey, we'll be able to go up a number of notches. Also, we are introducing education reforms that will encourage innovation and risk-taking. In our new 13 years education program, I don't know whether you've heard this before, we are introducing 26 applied subjects after O-level. If you don't sort of drop out, no need to drop out because you can stick around and get yourself educated on 26 applied subjects. Things like event management. Whoever thought that you could study event management in school? Look at this, these guys are making lots of money. It is good business. Weddings, events, event management, construction studies, textile and apparel studies, software development, 26 new areas of study. So you can, and also what we are going to do is for half year, business English. How do you communicate? How do you write a letter? Things of that nature. So we want to use our schools to change mindsets, to promote and celebrate entrepreneurs across the country. We are also following the new innovation and entrepreneurship strategy of Sri Lanka 2018-2022. I don't want to bore you, but the 3 main objectives are that what Indy was talking about. Exports are not of high skill and capital intensive. We want to change that. Second objective is to build an ecosystem for scaling growth-oriented startups. And one of the things in there is allowing limited liability partnerships. And third is to modernize and realign the R&D sector. We are taking steps to directly address the gap in financing, mentoring and network building between startups, larger companies, supply chains and markets. I would like to also mention that Enterprise Sri Lanka, which Mangala was supposed to speak on, will have 15 different subsidized credit facilities for startups, amounting to a total allocation of 60 billion rupees to be dispersed through state banks, state and private banks. And I'm also happy to announce that we are starting a development financing unit. We don't want to start a new development bank, but the development financing function where people are able to provide uncollateralized loans on projects. That will be another 20 billion leverage to 100 billion. And of course, programs like this, Venture Frontier Sri Lanka, what I understand will be Sri Lanka's first integrated entrepreneurship platform. Now, coming to an end, Indy was talking about failure. Although it sounds counterproductive, what we are trying to encourage is also a failure. When I was growing up, the word businessman, or of those of our vintage, businessman, there were only few references to business woman or business women, was not a much looked up to profession. Who wanted to be a businessman, right? Or they're into business, right? Everybody want to get a degree and become professionals. This has changed to an extent, and many young women and men are starting to start their own enterprises and be self-employed. Yet, I know this. You would be surprised at the number of young people looking for safe and risk-free jobs in the public sector. Boring jobs for life. Most people want that. So we have to change this mindset. We need to produce job creators and not job seekers. I just want to mention this one last thing. I was reading in the Financial Times, a person by the name of Jishan Misra wrote about some of his research. And he said, family, friends, cultural norms, society and peer pressures were the chief culprits swaying potential entrepreneurs to the comfort of 9-to-5 jobs. And the most respondents were not comfortable with risk-taking. I agree. Most startups will fail, but there is so much to learn from failure. Failure is not necessarily a bad thing. It's a badge of honor, if anything. Someone showed me an article on playgrounds in London which are putting in loose bricks, 2x4 and high jungle gyms and getting rid of their rubber matting and plastic toys. They are trying to reintroduce risk into play. They have seen that risk-free environments do not prepare children for the benefits of taking risk. A child that never pricks her finger on a thorn will never learn which plants to avoid. A child that never falls over will never learn to pick themselves up. Risk is a part of learning. Risk is what builds resilience. Risk is what enables success. In conclusion, I'm sure there are people like Venture Frontier Lanka, the young and dynamic group who are entrepreneurs themselves, who will take the lead in showing us why courageous, well-planned risk-taking is our path to development. I'm encouraged to hear that some of the biggest corporates are interested in working on this great initiative with them. That is why we love the idea of partnering with them. It's a public, private, and donor partnership. I wish Venture Frontier, Lanka, all success. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Harsha. I know you can't actually white van me, but it's nice to know that you can send an ambulance. So next up is, it's really good to see so many people here. It's great. And honestly, after listening to Dr. Harsha's speech, I actually have a lot of hope for the next 2 weeks to 2 years. Our next up is our panel discussion, which will be moderated by Mr. Nistar Kasim of the Daily FT, which is, in my opinion, one of the least reprehensible papers in the country. It's actually quite good. The speakers on the panel are Ms. Indira Malwa. You guys can start coming up as I introduce. The speakers on the panel are Ms. Indira Malwata, the chairperson of the Export Development Board, Mr. Manju Gunawardena, the CEO of Research and Innovation at LOLC, Dr. Harsha Subasinghe, the president of CodeGen, and I think they're also developing an electric car, Mr. Melvin Wong, who is a serial entrepreneur. I think he's had 2 exits, which is the holy grail. Mr. Oridu, Sri Lankan names get mispronounced all the time, so I don't feel bad. But Mr. Oridu Bujorian, the founder and CEO of OviBees Ventures, who's participating in this and done this sort of venture globally. And finally, Mr. Hemendra Jaiwira, the co-founder of Venture Frontier Lanka.
Thanks, Indy, for the introduction. Let me congratulate Minister as well for really laying the platform for hopefully a very interactive discussions with these great minds we have. I also want, I think there's a lot of insight and knowledge in the audience, and the only way we can leave this place in a positive way is if that interaction takes place. So I look forward for that. I'd like to ask the focus of entrepreneurship, or the theme of this event is how can entrepreneurship increase prosperity of a country? And I thought I'll ask from Melvin Wong, being an award-winning entrepreneur, as to what his own experience in terms of entrepreneurship bringing prosperity.
Hello, Mr. Working. Thank you very much for sharing that question to me. So I didn't expect to be asked first. So I started my entrepreneurship life when I was 27. So it was been many years ago. And to just answer your question and what you just said, entrepreneurship, I didn't start because I want to get rich. I'll be honest with you. But I guess the side effects of the success of a big entrepreneur is that you tend to get royalty from the returns that you get. So all I wanted to do is I wanted to try something out. It's all about trying, proving yourself that what you have in your mind, the idea you have, whether it works or not. And I've been mentoring a lot of entrepreneurs, especially in the US and also from Malaysia. I'm actually from Malaysia. I'm currently based in Korea. So I've been mentoring some entrepreneurs in Malaysia as well as in the US and one in Korea. And a lot of times when they want to be an entrepreneur, they just have this itch in their mind that I got this idea to do something. So they just take that leap of faith forward to try to do it. So that eventually leads to the company, eventually leads to a product, eventually leads to investment, sales, revenue, and an IPO or an exit, acquired back in that company. So that's where you create the wealth. So along the way, you actually create jobs. You actually create more opportunities for people who you hire, which you pay them a salary to do what you want them to do. Plus, eventually they may come out based on what they learned from your leadership as an entrepreneur, start their own startups. So I believe what I've done for the past 13 years as an entrepreneur, I've managed to inspire others to be entrepreneurs, and of course create more opportunities for youth in terms of employment and etc. So did I answer your question?
Thank you, Melvin. I'd like to take the same question to Harsh as well. You being an entrepreneur, do you feel that you're contributing towards prosperity? I mean, not in a national way, but do you feel that to your immediate community that you're serving?
Yeah, of course. Answer is yes. Of course, if you're going to become entrepreneur, of course you are going to help the country. And for me, my vision is to help the country and change the way that the people thinking about the country and to become completely a different place. I firmly believe Sri Lanka can be changed into become Singapore in about 7 years or so. Hard work. So look at the statistics, and I'm very confident that we can do it. But so I think my vision is about the country than just the community itself.
So we have two comments saying that entrepreneurship is key to towards prosperity. Then why it's not happening here? Maybe Heminder, maybe you can tell where the problem is.
So I think I work with a lot of students from University of Moratuwa, and one of the questions that I ask from them Most of them are either electronic engineers, software engineers, and I asked them, okay, you are in third year or fourth year. Once this is over, what do you expect? So a lot of people say, a lot of engineers say, I want a salary of 100,000 rupees. That's the starting salary, at least. And then I asked them, okay, so you join some company at 100,000 salary, and then maybe you work for 5-10 years, and then maybe your salary become 200,000. Maybe after 10 years, it's become 500,000. Maybe after 20 years, maybe 1 million. Maybe you are a CEO or a CXO in a company. Okay, that's you add everything, say 30 years of your working life, what it comes to. And then, of course, they are good in maths. They say about somebody said 50 million rupees. So that's the value that they bring in during their lifetimes, about 30 years. So then I asked them to divide it by 150. It comes to roughly about $1 million US. So that's the valuation of an engineer over a period of 30 years. Then at the same time, I have worked with 3 engineers who graduated maybe 3 years ago, today running companies of their own, which are valued at $1 million US. So that's what you call value creation. So normal engineer would take about 30 years to create $1 million US. Here, same people, same education background, everything, but they create the same value within just 3 years. So I think we need more people like that to create value addition, which is, in my definition, is creating prosperity. Thank you.
Thank you. Very interesting perspective. Uvidu, tell me, so there is, how do you unleash this potential? You have a lot of global experience of encouraging startups as well as young entrepreneurs. How can Sri Lanka get it right?
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure for me to be here. Thank you, everyone. So I've heard the first introduction of all the reasons why Sri Lanka will not make it, but it's all relative. And I worked in many countries around the world, and I also met a lot of entrepreneurs here. So with OviBees Ventures, we are working with different countries around the world to help them set up entrepreneurship platforms so that actually we can build a path to prosperity. If you look concretely, you have very strong technical minds. In other parts of the world, you don't have this level of talent. Even if you have an entrepreneur with a great idea, they will need to outsource the technical development to another country. You have very passionate entrepreneurs. There are regions of the world, I don't want to mention it, it's where governments throw like hundreds of millions to try to stimulate local entrepreneurship, and they mostly just have immigrant entrepreneurs who are starting. So here you have a lot of fire in the entrepreneurs. Third, the market, 21 million people, yes, it's not big compared with India, but it's bigger. For example, Israel has 4 million people market. From the beginning, they are starting with having an idea that they will go abroad, they will reach global from the design of the idea. And I went around the world and I see many countries that don't have this level of technical expertise, and Sri Lankans can actually build potentially products for the global market. So if you look at the different existing elements that need to be combined and brought together, I think it's critical to identify very quick the examples, concrete examples. Heminda mentioned some of the companies. I'm originally from Romania, and we just had the first unicorn, the first company valued at more than $1 billion, where Axel invested and some other companies. Our dream here together with Venture Lanka is hopefully in the next 7 years to have the first unicorn coming from Sri Lanka. And I think that is possible by joining forces, because it's important, you as a journalist, to identify those examples so you can inspire the next generation. It's important to have the support of the government with the Export Development Board. Once you have something that you know you can export, it's important to have mentors like Harsha. That actually, when I came here, I was very impressed with Harsha, especially because he's pushing the boundaries of what is possible. And I think that type of mindset, of course, with an execution behind, is critical to start working the path in that direction.
Thanks a lot. Interesting you mentioned about supporting organizations. I move on to Indira. This is a reality check for the panel. 30 years ago, I don't think there was an organized effort to mentor entrepreneurs or even even funding, I think they found. So if you talk to the older generation of entrepreneurs, they just did it on their own. Now, when it comes to EDB, I think every new exporter is a startup. And so you would have a lot of experience in, this might be the first point for them before they go to a bank even. What has been EDB's perspective in terms of entrepreneurship and exports and prosperity?
Yeah, as our minister said, now things like high tech was something which has come up in the last few years. But particularly being an agriculture country, I think the EDB has been working for some time. And in fact, today I was very, very happy that in one of the leading newspapers, the article said, just to quote, "Why be an employee without being a generator of employment?" Now, this guy was a person who graduated from Sri Lankan University. He got a job in the wildlife department. And then he thought, why should I be employed? Why should I be a person getting a monthly income from a government department? Why can I not go on to entrepreneurship? So we went and did a course on Ayurveda. And then he came and met the Export Development Board. And he said, why can't I next be an exporter? So EDB has had a number of new schemes where we feel unless you take a risk, we firmly believe that in startups, all can't be successful. So we have to take that risk. Of course, we had the advantage that we take its government money, but we take calculated risks. Because unless you do that, because we find that a lot of people find it very frustrating to go to banks and they first talk of collateral, which has been discussed the last year. So we evaluate a project and then we take that risk. And then we start assisting these entrepreneurs to become global leaders. And I'm so glad, Heminda, that you all took this tagline of build local and reach global. So the EDB has had a number of schemes. I think just an example, a few years ago there was a scheme to help 1,000 graduates in the budget for which 2 local state banks were supposed to give them 1.5 million rupees. And the government was to give a guarantee on the interest. I know how much EDB struggled. Being EDB, we advertised it. We got about 100 applications. We had a top expert panel, and it was across all sectors. It wasn't only IT, from all tourism to agriculture, all across, and all were young graduates, very enthusiastic. And here we sort of provoked them, said, come, let's join, let's start on these startups. And how much we struggled to get the money and for these 2 state banks to agree. But I must say, from the last budget up to now, we are all ready to start. We have sorted out those issues, and the Arabuma Credit Scheme for startups, for the graduates, will start on the 1st of April. Most likely we will launch in the first week. So if there's a will, there's a way. So EDB didn't give up. I know how much our officers were disappointed. Some of them are here today because they all firmly believe for prosperity for Sri Lanka that the young people, the young entrepreneurs have to be brought into mainstream business. And EDB will be there to support it.
Thanks. Harsha, good lesson for you. 2 years of waiting. And you spoke about 60 billion being available going forward. Manjula, I'll move to you as final in the final person in the first set of questions I have. Do you think that Sri Lanka has the capability to really leapfrog? I mean, we are so late in the entrepreneurship game, in the startup. It's sort of quite recent. You think, do we have what it takes to really leapfrog?
Yes, the answer is yes, definitely. Okay, let me share my experience first. I think that's a very good, starting point for me to start it, because we have negatives as positives in balance. Now, in last 5 years, we started talking about innovation, we started talking about startups, and we started talking about venture capitalists. But 22 years ago, 25 years ago, when we were obtaining our first patent, second patent, we didn't have any guidance, we didn't know where to go, and we started complaining. So we have developed these things, we are ready to solve problems in the industry, we are ready to solve problems in the country, but no one is helping us. But now the playground is completely different now. Support is available, guidance is definitely available, and in my game, I'm playing a game very similar to him in this case. What I do is a very simple thing. We mentor and we supervise university students, final year students as well as the MPhil and postgraduate students. Now, in my workspace, I share two completely different, completely opposite areas, working as a senior research scientist in Slintech, as well as now as a CEO of LOLC. Completely and purely scientific engineering background, as well as purely non-engineering and financial background. Now, when I joined LOLC, my good friend Conrad Dias, he's here today, told me, Manju, we should change this game now, because we have earned money, we have money in the organization, now we should be in a position to take risks and spend this money on startups. I'm not talking about startups as you develop something and sell and earn money. Elevating whatever the knowledge set from this level to another level, it might be a very simple value addition, is a startup in our game. Because the wise usage of available technology or applications is the best innovation we can think of. You don't have to reinvent wheels, you don't have to start from the scratch. We have building blocks here and there distributed. If we can take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 together and come up with a solution where we can elevate the lifestyle or the living status of the general public, this is a fantastic innovation. Now, that's what we do. The last government, when I'm representing Ministry of Science and Technology also, we came up with a very interesting methodology called 10 by 10 matrix. We started working on 10 different engineering and scientific subjects, including water, food security, shelter, cognitive development, and textile, IT, like that, and interventions, nanotechnology, biotechnology, IT, software development, and we started this 10 by 10 matrix and wanted to put each and every research and innovation project or a spending into one of these blocks. This government also took the same model and now running. It's a super fantastic continuation. So when someone comes to us, either for money or for technology, we try to match the requirement as well as the solution he got in his mind into one of these boxes. Then with that, we immediately stop duplicating of resources, duplicating of money, whatever we have. Then we are now in a position to guide them very nicely into the quick conversions. We need fast results now. What I wanted to tell you is that when we see a proper title in a university research, what we do now is to take hands and guide them to a company like LOLC or to another investor in the industry for him to grow together with the industry. Because once we give them a title to do his final year research, he is putting his 100% into that because it is his 6 credit or 8 credit subject. He is not doing or taking shortcuts. he's putting his 6 months full time into that project. Then you ended up after the 6th month as a super knowledge set in that particular domain and this particular problem. When you link that person into the industry, you resolve that burning industrial problem then and there, it's already resolved. Then either he can start as an entrepreneur to resolve this problem further by himself, or he got an assured job. So once we give research titles and research areas, we always ensure that he's going to get his job end of the research period. So that is the real startup. He can simply demand his salary. As he said, salary is not a problem at all. We started this new project eye to eye with this government, innovators to industry. With these kind of projects, with these kind of guidance and refined technologies, it is extremely possible to have this quick jump and a very impactful jump.
Thank you. I'm going to post another set of questions, but I want the audience to interact because I think, as I said, there are a lot of startup as well as budding entrepreneurs and those who are planning to go. I'd like to ask the panel, we spoke about funding. Everyone knows, funding is not an issue only for startup. Funding or access to credit is a big problem, or the cost of credit is a big problem for every enterprise. What about the ideas? We have found that some startup really come with lots of Me Too products or Me Too ideas. How are we in terms of ideas? Harsha, I also want you to comment on this. And also from the audience, if you do, please give your input as well. Keep it brief. Because you're dealing with lots of young entrepreneurs or people who want to start.
Good question, Ista. Yes. Good question, Ista. I think, as you rightly said, we have a sort of, there are good startups which are doing Me Too products a lot. Me Too in the sense maybe it's successfully done in some other country, doing the same thing in this country, in Sri Lanka, which is not bad. Even that is good. But then looking at one of the biggest problems that we see is that we need more ideas coming from Sri Lanka, and we can go into, as our coach says, we want to go build local and go global. So I think what I see is that one of the problems that we have in our education system, because I work in universities and I do rapid prototyping for 12-year-olds. I just started 6 months ago, and one of the challenges I gave for these kids, like 12-year-olds, I want a solution for dengue. So I had a session. This is 3-hour power-packed session of rapid prototyping. I learned from head of Google X, who was doing head of experience at Google X. And these guys came up with ideas like, they were giving this solution. Now, for example, they call me sir, right? Because I, sir, me prashne tiyenne pirisidu wature neme. The dengue issue is not pure water. The mosquito won't lay eggs in pure water. I'm learning. Because pure water won't help a mosquito to lay eggs. Mosquito goes and lay eggs in, at least there should be some level of bacterial formation, which is correct. And we educate that you have to take off all the clean water also from the wherever that is. It's not that. It's about stagnated water. ඊට පස්සේ මේගොල්ලෝ කියනවා සර් මේ වැඩියෙන්ම අපිරිසුදු ජලය තියෙන කොහෙද දන්නවද? මේ අපේ টয়ලට් එක ඇතුලේ. The biggest breeding ground in any environment is your toilet pit. This is a 12-year-old saying me. Then there was this discussion going on. Then I asked, okay, how do you prevent it? So, අපි භූමි තෙල් දාමු. සතියකට සැරයක් භූමි තෙල් දාන්න pit එකට. Put kerosene oil every week into the pit. The ideas they are coming. I don't know whether right or wrong, but these are ideas. And then I asked the question, well, no, another kid says, kerosene oil දැම්මොත් එහෙම ගිනි ගන්න පුළුවන්. So again you develop certain things. So it's came from that very small idea, and we built a mosquito trap, and also there is a entire life cycle of how to stop dengue, not just in one place, but the entire maybe village, maybe entire country. I mean, a product you can sell, not only Sri Lanka, you can sell it to any tropical country. So I think you have to create that discussion. You have to create, because one of the problems that we have in Sri Lanka, not only Sri Lankans, I mean maybe a lot of other countries, especially Sri Lankans, when you get a really bright idea, you tend to hide it. You don't know what to tell anyone. If you tell that to my friend, he might implement it before me. So that's what we need to change. The entrepreneurship, innovation is not about technology. It's about changing your mindset. It's about mindset. As long as you keep your idea to you, you will die with your idea. Start sharing your ideas. Start sharing, start discussing ideas. So you have to create that from the school time. So I think that's the starting point, and then you can go into the question that you asked. You can create global ideas that can create unicorns.
Thanks. Harsha, any insights? I'll come to you. Insights in terms of you do come across people with a lot of ideas. Do you think we lack ideas or?
I think in Sri Lanka, everywhere, anybody we talk to, they have ideas. So, I mean, I haven't met a single person who doesn't have ideas. So even if you meet a Trisha guy, he has an idea. And quite interesting guy, I actually met a Trisha guy. I was in the tuk-tuk, and this guy has at the back, he has these bottle things, so that he put 2 bottles of water as well. And then you can have a TV at the back, and then if you want, you can have the hot water, right? So, and then it's pristine, very nice and clean. And once you finish it, he actually gives you a little receipt as well, right? And so you had, and ask him like, if your journey is only about 100 rupees, and if the bottle is about 60 rupees, you are losing money. And he said, that doesn't matter. He said, if I give the water, I tell them, drink the entire water so that I can recycle the boat. But he said that my marketing is much better than that. So the people will think that I want to go in that particular Trisha which has a bottled water, and then you get it free, and you can play any type of music you want, and you can have a TV as well. So I was thinking that, very hell, if you multiply this thing, we can take over the entire Trisha market, right? But the only problem is like how we change the mindset of all the Trisha guys to think exactly the same. So even the Trisha guy has come up with really nice ideas. So we have really good ideas with every single person. But the problem that we have is we don't implement them. And nobody implements them. They only talks and talks and talks and talks. And when we had social media, we used to talk on social media, not anymore. And then only thing is like we don't actually implement them. And then the other problem that I've seen in Sri Lanka is we are not resolving problems, right? So Morato University is a good example. They do every single thing in the world, but they don't look after their own university. So if you look at it, I said, why the bloody hell you didn't build a bin? So when somebody go nearby, the bin opens and you can put the trash into the bin. But if you go around Morato University, you can't find a bin. Right? But they have mechanical engineering, electronic engineering, software engineering, you name it, every single engineering, but they don't know where to put their trash. That's the first place. I mean, again, I always say Morato University has the most ugliest looking buildings, but why don't you build a robot that can paint all the Morato University buildings all the time? And the garden is the horrendous and ridiculous garden. They have never built any gadget that can actually take the weed out and do that. Only problem in Sri Lanka is we don't see the problems. But we talk unnecessary problems. We resolve the most ridiculous problems that nobody wants to resolve. Right? And that's a problem. So I always say, if you want to find problems, then try to read the real-time problems that we already face. I mean, just imagine mosquito problem, right? I mean, nobody has ever came up with a mosquito idea, but I also bought some of the gadgets that had high-frequency mosquito repellents, and sometimes it actually works. I don't know what it is, but I suddenly get about 2 or 3 mosquitoes coming up, maybe the deaf mosquitoes or something. And we sitting in a mosquito farm, but nobody is trying to resolve the mosquito issue, right? But I was thinking that maybe the Westerners, they don't have mosquitoes, they never put effort to it, right? So, and we have the mosquitoes, but we never try any other gadgets at all, not a single gadget. So we have the wrong ideas. My answer is we have the wrong ideas, but we need to change the wrong ideas to become right ideas. And from the right ideas, we need to make sure that we implement those ideas rather than just talking about it. And not having social media is much better, so we'll find another social media now. So I will release new one very soon. It's actually, thank you for the government for that.
Well, the social media will be back live, I think, after tomorrow. So.
Please don't.
So I think you touched a nerve. The good news and the bad news that this is a global problem. What type of ventures are being developed? What is the DNA of the ventures? And we see this in many places around the world where you have a lot of ideas around handicraft shops, around restaurants, but unfortunately you cannot have that many restaurants and handicrafts. So you need to actually look at the entire process, how you come with ideas. And one key area that we will be addressing through Venture Frontier Lanka is what is called ideation and design thinking. So actually we want to work with our entrepreneurs to actually go through a process where you assess the quality of the idea, the DNA. Are we talking about a venture that has potential for the local community, for the country, for the region? What is the potential? And at the same time also interconnect the country with the centers of innovation in those sectors that we want to build in the country. I think it's once you identify some interesting ideas with global DNA, with the potential to grow, then critical is to organize very quick a support system behind and actually allowing them to access different markets, connecting them with mentors that have built similar companies, connecting them maybe with the diaspora, with existing capital. You mentioned a little bit at the beginning that the lack of funds or access to funds. Many markets around the world, I'm hearing about 100 million funds. Even here, I think there's a fund for agriculture. And they don't have sufficient applications for that specific type of venture. So I think that because everyone kind of waits with a lot of money at the end where the risk is already taken out. What we are working with Venture Frontier Lanka is how can we get in early, find the most promising entrepreneurs that Heminda was mentioning and some other entrepreneurs, find the right mentors, have the right peer, the right corporate support. And for example, we're very grateful to LOLC for taking the initiative to join us in our effort because it takes a lot of participation from multiple stakeholders with the industry expertise, people who know really deep those sectors. And just a very concrete application. Tomorrow we will do a session. Melvin happens to be an expert in design thinking, which actually addresses this specific issue. And tomorrow we will do a session at the Royal College Union Skill Center at 5 p.m. So all the entrepreneurs are invited tomorrow, where we are going very practically through this process on how you actually assess an idea and how you connect it to a specific problem. So a core part of what we plan to do with Venture Frontier Lanka is actually working on the quality of the ideas. The higher the quality and the higher the application for global markets, the higher chance for us together to actually have a number of unicorns and a number of successful ventures.
Thank you. Okay,
Sorry, if you don't mind me sharing
Yes.
some, there's just two takeaways I'd like to share to the people here. When it comes to ideas, one is that try to be realistic in what your idea is about. Now, what do I mean by realistic? If you have an AI idea in Sri Lanka, I mean, do you have enough AI engineers who could help you to develop that idea? Like, let's say I'm based in Malaysia, we hardly have any AI engineers who really know about what's AI about. So if I have an AI idea, it may not be that realistic from where I'm from. Of course, if you're in Silicon Valley, that's a different story. So that's one thing I like to share. Be realistic about what you can achieve with your idea. Get an idea that you can really easily work with the kind of resources that you can get, especially in your country or in your market. The second thing I like to share is that people always say, follow your passion, right? Well, it's not really that right, it's not really that wrong. I mean, if you heard of what Mark Cuban say, you know, the owner of Dallas Mavericks, the famous entrepreneur that's one of the judges in a Shark Tank in US. So he said that do something that you're good at. Don't follow your passion. He's not saying that you shouldn't just follow your passion. To have a higher chance of succeeding in your startup, you should be doing something you're good at. For example, if you've been working in the banking industry for so many years, you're good with numbers in the banking industry, right? So do something on fintech, for instance. If you've been doing something on trading, you can do e-commerce, for instance. So do something that you already have experience in. That will help you to lead your way to success in your startup. Okay, passion is good. It actually puts fun into your business. It makes it more fun, but doesn't really mean that you have to follow your passion blindly. So please keep that in mind.
Thank you. It's the opportunity for the audience to really interact with the panel here and perhaps share some of your own insights or your own viewpoints in terms of some of the things that we discussed. I suppose there'll be some roving mics. Okay, fine. So, who likes to start? Please raise your hand and, okay. Keep it brief or to the point so that more people can share their own ideas.
Thank you. My name is Dikshan Nauralampulam. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Bundle Hub. My question to the panel is one, as an entrepreneur, one of the challenges that we see in Sri Lanka is scaling. And when we go to scale in small markets, as someone said, in Israel and Sweden and so on, they have somehow been able to jump that curve. What would the government do to enable us as entrepreneurs, in addition to talking and giving mass media publicity about the funding they would give? I would like to hear from you as one of the panelists to see how you can help entrepreneurs who cannot get that basic seed funding. So that's the question I have. How would you fund the seed funding stage? I know there's a lot of talk, but it's very hard to access that seed funding. Not for myself, but I know enough entrepreneurs in this country who have complained to me.
Fine, thank you. Seed funding. Any more questions or any more ideas from the audience in terms of funding so that we can structure this whole panel discussion more productively? Any more ideas? Okay, please. On funding aspect, we'll take about 3 ideas or questions so that the panel can.
Tilak Dissanayake, the question to Venture Frontier Lanka, what kind of size of investments are you all trying to do? Because you mentioned something which is valued at $1 million, so which I presume you have invested a very small amount to get that kind of valuation. So just to get a sense of your portfolio size.
Okay, 2. One more. Yes, please. Yes.
I'm Chandula Abevikrama. Actually, since you spoke about the funding side, I just want to mention that we have first time innovated in Sri Lanka and introduced a first ever TV reality show for social entrepreneurs and impact investors at Power, which is running for the 5th month in success every Sunday. And we have given opportunities to a number of entrepreneurs in this country, about 100 over entrepreneurs to pitch Hemindra was one of the entrepreneurs who came and pitched on earth powder, though he didn't take the investment from investors, he got an investment from overseas for his project. So what happens is we have created access to private equity, first time in Sri Lanka, for social entrepreneurs and impact investors. Though the ticket size is small, our program is even better than Shark Tank, because this is mainly focusing on the social entrepreneurs and impact investors. And I want to tell you that there are a number of entrepreneurs across the country benefiting from this reality show, and we have created the first time in Sri Lanka the platform across for micro, small and medium level entrepreneurs to come before, and that's an opportunity and we want to scale it up. In the coming season, we are starting the second season of Earth Power, and we will scale up from 250,000 rupees to 10 million. It's private equity, it's not loans, it's not debt, it's investment made by Sri Lankan investors.
Thank you, Chandula, for that. Okay, great. Can I revert to the panel or any more? Okay, seed capital. Anyone like to answer? Yes.
So one of the components that we have with Venture Frontier Lanka is actually launching a seed fund that will support the most promising entrepreneurs from Sri Lanka. And we are doing that in partnership with private corporations like LOLC and a few other local large companies. We will have a very clear process for selection of the most promising ventures that we will select for funding. And I would say even more important than the funding is the support system behind to help the entrepreneurs scale up. For example, in the other projects I've done, like GIST, Global Innovation Through Science and Technology, we organized that for the best companies, we had partnerships with Consumer Electronics Show, with TechCrunch and Tech in Asia. For example, we brought a very good entrepreneur from Lebanon that had a device you can attach to your swimming goggles so it can trace your pulse while you are swimming. Very innovative. We brought her to the Consumer Electronics Show and she won the 2014 Consumer Innovation Design Award. That of course got her covered in Wired Magazine, Wall Street Journal, so on and so forth. She did a crowdfunding platform where she raised additional capital. So capital is one element, especially if it's smart capital that comes with industry expertise in the industries we want to support. Then the support from the government to actually globalize in specific areas. And a component of what we will be doing is we will have Venture Frontier Lanka ambassadors in all the key centers where Sri Lanka has diaspora. So we'll create these supporting hubs of entrepreneurs in those geographies that will work closely with us. And we also plan to bring the top entrepreneurs from Sri Lanka to those hubs. So we are organizing a support system behind that once we selected the most promising ventures, they will have local mentorship and global mentorship to actually allow them to think through a plan to scale globally very successfully and have few concrete examples.
Thanks. Heminder, you'd like to mention about, there was a question about what would be the ideal size of projects or ventures you'll consider?
Yeah, to answer that question, we'll explain that in detail after this panel about what is the exact this program is all about. So there's no ticket size to start off. It can be anything. But then it's a integrated system. It's a flow that you go. So basically, if you really want to go global, then you have to be up there. So everyone won't get the big money. So there's a very stringent quality assurance and a process that we select. But of course, there's no limit. You can start from any level. Even grassroots level, we can start in the program. But then if you look at maybe big funding ticket items, it's maybe the best of the best will get that. So we will create that funnel. So that's what we are trying to do.
Thank you.
I would like to add something. Yeah. Now, when it comes to funding, the prioritization is very important. Now, when it comes to a project, I mean, as a company, LOLC, when it comes to funding for innovation and new projects, we have a different mechanism altogether. The idea is very simple. Now, Sri Lanka, okay, we are talking about small ticket funding, startups, but we have another depth to it. Now, we are a fantastic country with extreme amounts of mineral resources as well as the extreme amount of plant resources. Now, the very good example is when it comes to EDB, we are working mostly with exporters. We have unique situations in this country. Some of our minerals are unique to the world. Some forms of our minerals are unique to the world, but we don't capitalize those things. But when it comes to funding at LOLC, if a newcomer or a person with an idea, with originality, we have no fear funding. We have no fear investing in that particular idea or the project, because that is the only way forward. Take graphite as an example. Selling price of graphite in a Bogala mine is only $2.2 per kilogram, the quality 1, class 1 graphite, 99.6% of pure vein graphite. But by adding value into it, now the first value addition is 2,200 times. The selling price of reduced graphene now is 4,500 to 6,000 dollars a kilo. In Slintech, we have developed our own techniques to convert. That's single example I'm telling. The second example is the vein crystals we have. 1,000 rupees a kilo people sell. But the first value addition is $880 a kilo at Samsung. So if someone is trying to come up with new ideas or new product development cases in those areas, we have no fear investing. Number one. Number two, the phytochemicals. Whatever the plant grow in our soils got comparatively high amount of phytochemicals as active ingredients. If you compare Sri Lanka and India, the same plant shows us sometimes 25 to 30% more active ingredients in our soil. So we should capitalize on these things. If someone is trying to extract and develop a product to win the global market with this impact, made in Sri Lanka, but to give a global impact, not a single other country or a company will be in a position to reach that level, because we are unique. We are not capitalizing on the uniqueness. That is where the real problems are facing. But when it comes to investments from LOLC, we have no fear investing even blindly into these areas. Someone should do that. That is the idea.
Great. Thank you. We'll move to, that's an interesting point, ideas. Any insights from the audience where you took an idea to one of the, maybe to an angel investor and that was turned down, but someone took it on and then it was a success? Anyone like to share some of the experiences?
My name is Dr. Zulfik from Falcon International. As you just mentioned about the LOLC, what is the, when you say for funding on investment, so what is the amount can you all go up to? Are you going to get the foreign investors also to come and join these projects? Or are you all going to fund it? What will be the maximum amount? Will it go on to over $1 million or?
So this one, I mean, first of all, I want to differentiate the LOLC current business and what I'm talking about here is completely two different things. So it's a very hard question to answer because investment capacity is there. In the organization, we have no limitations for the best idea. And it's not an investment for you to develop it and take it and go. It's growing together. That is the importance. We have no problems working with outside the foreigners, foreign companies, no limitation in this game. We evaluate any project with open minds. If it is a go, we have capabilities of going to surprising levels. And we have no fear doing that because that is the ultimate success as a country. every one of us, we are talking about startups, entrepreneurship, individual startups and small tickets, medium tickets. But here, while everyone is talking about it, we should be in a position to capitalize on our natural national resources. We have no limits in that.
Thanks.
If we are fit enough to fund that amount is not a big problem.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions to the panel in terms of ideas? Yes, please. Or design as well, because we have an expert on design.
Hi, I'm Atiq Nizam. I'm the director of Faith Group, and I'm also the founder of a new startup which we're planning to launch in a couple of months, hopefully. It's called prepmyride.com. I just have a question for the panels here. Now, Mr. Meng, right? I'm sorry, I couldn't follow up your name. Yes, we were earlier discussing about the Shark Tank thing that, about Mark Cuban and all these guys, how they invest into entrepreneurs and stuff like that. So the question I have is for the entrepreneurs in Sri Lanka, okay, is it just only going to be a monetary investment? Is it just only going to be cash investment? Or is it also going to be now when for entrepreneurs, when you invest in entrepreneurs, will doors be open? Like, will there be assistance, okay, for entrepreneurs to put their products into, like, what do you call these big box retailers and stuff like that? Is it going to be only investment basis that the support is going to be got for the entrepreneurs? Or is that also, is that also a side that you will be helping the entrepreneurs in?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, so you're asking me whether if someone invests to a company, whether they invest in just money or they provide like mentorship or assistance and etc.? Yes. Okay, yes, that's a very good question. In fact, a lot of times you want to find an investors that not just put in their money, because if you have that, they only care about the money. They only ask you, they're going to bug you every month. How much are you making? How much, when am I going to exit? How much am I going to get in return? Well, sometimes you get investors, such investors actually. But what you want to get in investors is someone that could complement you. Someone could be your advisor. Someone could open the market for you. Someone who could really understand the industry that you are trying to enter, that you're trying to start. I'm not sure what industry or what your startup is trying to do. Like a lot of times, I don't go and tell people that I invest into startups. I want to look into the startups. I want to understand the startup first and see if I like the startup and I like what they're doing. So I'm not there to just say, okay, people are going to ask me for money, for investment, etc. I'm just going to say that, what are you guys are doing? How realistic are you guys doing this? How far have you guys done? Then what I do is, if I could play a role that's complementing, helping them, advising them, mentoring them, especially in the areas that I've went through, I think if I can put in more than just monetary value into the company, I will definitely want to be part of the company. Because a lot of times I'm not mentoring because I want to cash out. I'm mentoring because people are not investing because they just want to cash out. They want to help. A lot of times, I don't know if you guys have been through, going through a lot of startups. You want to help people because you have been through what they are going to go through. So you want, basically I tell entrepreneurs like, my pain is your gain. I went through the pain of doing all this. So I don't want to see you go through all this pain I went through. So that's what I do. If you're asking myself, yeah. Thank you.
To answer your...
Yeah. No, just.
To answer the question, now this is why Heyminda and the Export Development Board are going to tie up. Because once they develop the entrepreneurs, the export development will come with the market intelligence and help those entrepreneurs to go global. And it's not necessary that you come only through the venture frontier. Anyone here who has those good ideas and who has an enterprise and who wants to go global, we have a market access scheme. Again, it's with the money, with the budget which we are launching in April, where any entrepreneur could come to EDB. We have 3 categories for small, large and medium. The large goes up to about 25 million. It can be your own idea, your own market, or you could get the assistance of the Export Development Board to venture out.
Thank you. Yes. We have.
Is there a possibility that if I have a property and I want to develop into a leisure company, that you could find me a partner to do that?
So, yeah, answer to that. So we'll explain the entire process after this panel discussion. So it's even finding partners also possible, yes.
Right.
But you have to go through the entire process. So it's, of course
so
you can enter.
I can talk to somebody.
Yeah, that's right. Once we are done, you can speak to. I want to make use of the presence of Harsha, Minister Harsha, because he's there. We spoke about ease of doing business. It's not easy to start any business in this country. Manju spoke about using natural resources. It's a very sensitive thing. People with the kind of public outcry on, about plundering of natural resources and all that. So I'm just bear in mind. I want anyone in the audience who really found it difficult to have a easy startup in terms of you have an idea, you have funding, any from where we can share it with the minister?
Okay. We have a property, it was a spice property. Unfortunately, we have very creative, I would say, politicians who ruined the entire plantation sector in my area. And I am stuck with 50 acres with no income, right? And I want to start something with a good partnership investor, 50 acres, lot of water, all spice property. It's for my children that I want to start up.
Okay, thank you. Any more? Please, yeah.
University of Jaffna. I have my own startup as a student. Okay. So the university students, we compete in so many competitions, mainly in IT-based competitions. But when we do not win those, after about 2 or 3 months, we find out that our product is already in the market by another company in Sri Lanka. As I learned from the Intellectual Property Act, there is no way of protecting your program codes, and there is no copyright for those. So if we could implement that, we could have more innovators and inventors in the market.
Excellent. Okay. Because Harsha, I've seen the government is trying to move up in the ease of doing business index, and I'm sure you can give a lot of ideas to the minister.
Hi, I'm Indivari, representing Mora Ventures. Actually, I should thank him for raising that question, because my question is also kind of same. Actually, being an undergraduate at University of Moratuwa, most of my friends have startups and have ideas, and all of them are from engineering background. So what they face when they actually, even when they compete, is like big companies trying to buy them. And they do not like the idea at first, but then when the pressure is coming from the big companies and they are trying to buy these small people's ideas, actually I think it kind of limits the youth, or I would say the burning desire in them. And actually it kind of kills the competition. So I really don't get the idea why Sri Lanka is still trying to kill the competition. And also there's another suggestion from me. As we are organizing these Mora Ventures, we actually work very close with the undergraduates, and many undergraduates has many ideas, and there are a lot of having these technical ideas, but they do not have the business skills as such. And we find it very hard for them to compete in our competitions actually, because they're kind of afraid. And we can talk all these ideas in these AC rooms, but actually we are lacking the real help in getting these people into these competitions and, you know, having the motivation behind them, because they are not sure actually they can reach the help that they really need when they start up with their startup actually. So I would like to know what the Venture Frontier Lanka has for them, these students who are really struggling to get help.
Okay, thank you. Thanks a lot. There was some... Okay, please. We have been told to wrap it up unless they want to extend the question session. Okay, there are 3 questions. Okay.
I have one thing to add, my friend. I'm also representing Mora Ventures. In Mora Ventures, actually, like 70 teams apply, but only few teams actively participate, because people have ideas, but they don't take their next step. So, is there any step taken by Venture Frontier to change minds of people to not to have only ideas, but to take action?
Okay, thank you. I think, yes, please.
Hello. So I am Prithvi Raghav from AdMingle. It's a social influencer marketing platform. So basically the question I have for the panel is, let's say you come up with a new idea that is not existing in the world. So will you all help the, the innovators to come up with the patent rights for their product? Or do they have to already get their patent rights in order to come for the investment?
Okay, thank you. My question was actually, is there an ease of registering a patent in Sri Lanka? How quickly do they do that? How expensive is that? Those are the things that really matters in ease of doing business index. How is it? So please focus on that as well, while we'll take some of the other questions. Please.
Hi, good evening everybody. I'm Telina from Simplex. I have a very specific question to Dr. Harsha and if, for the Venture Frontier Lanka as well. If you have mentioned 5 industries that you are going to invest or that you will be focusing on in this program. But as a person coming from logistics, the logistic cost in Sri Lanka is 10% this year. So, but we have not seen any innovations or investments from the government side or the public side and the private side towards logistics. How would you consider logistics also as an opportunity as well?
Okay, fine. Thank you. You want one? There is one. Okay. Okay. Okay, I can only take 2 questions. So there is one here and one here. Then I'm sure the panel will be available.
Yeah, I have a question for Dr. Harsha. This is from my personal experience. From the intellectual property office, to get a trademark registered, it takes about 2 to 3 years. I mean, for something simple as that, why can't we have some system that we can get it done quickly? I mean, that's basics of business. So
great. 2-3 years. Okay. Yes.
Yeah. I'm Dimutu. I'm running my own travel agency. So I'm actually looking for taking that global in a very innovative, unique technique of marketing. But this is a travel agency and it's all virtual business, and my clients are all over the place in the world. But because this is especially for Dr. Harsha, because he's embracing this event, when we are registering travel agency, still 10-20 years old rules and regulations are still intact. And that actually is a roadblock for us, because I don't see a reason for me to have a 800 or 1,800 square feet to register my travel agent business, which I don't get a penny ROI out of that square feet. So something to take, to look at, because this country, this is an island, travel industry, it can be boom, right? So it will be a much more opportunity for people to look at in that way if we look at the change in the conventional rules we have.
Thank you. Great. Last question, and then we'll give the, if Minister wants to make a statement, yes.
I think I might be out of context here. I'm just going a bit back on funding. So with regards to particular funding Venture Frontier does, is it at the seed level only or venture in a sense that there needs to be a bit of proven commerce already happening?
Okay, that I think will be answered during their presentation. Okay, Harsha, you'd want to just respond quickly, briefly?
Yeah, I acknowledge that there are multiple issues in starting business, taking a lot of time and money to register. For instance, we were looking at registering a company and why it's taking so long. And one reason we found is that you have to place an advertisement in the newspapers for 2 weeks. And this is coming from some old law. And I was only given the task on the 28th of December. I got this responsibility was given to me 28th of December. And by the 31st of March, I have to finish a whole bunch of things. My target is to leapfrog from 111 to somewhere in the 90s in this round. And we have segmented the things that we can achieve by the 31st of March and things that we can achieve by the next year 31st of March. And in the middle of that 12-month period, we will achieve several other things. So the index may not move up a whole lot between that time, but really your ideas, you're more than welcome, and I urge you to please bring to me. I'd like to deliver. That's one I really am passionate about. I do things outside the way I'm supposed to do things in government also. But please, you can even put up my email and you can email me or you can get in touch with me. Please send those ideas and we will certainly do whatever we can to change those. And your particular question is quite simple. It's ridiculous. I'll give you another example. To get a permit to build, say, a small B&B or whatever, right? You had to get so many permits from the municipality. And to get these permits, you had to go to different departments. You go take this one, next one, and so on and so forth. And it's taken so long. So what we did is we said, have one counter that you hand over your application. And it's an internal affair that once it is done, over a period of time, you can get the other side. So that is the ease of doing business. Then it is a customs documentation. Then in terms of e-register of companies. Then in terms of a whole lot of other things. For instance, when companies have to wind down, for instance, an official receiver. Every country must have an official receiver. And that official receiver has a role to play in doing business and not only opening companies, shutting companies down as well. So we are looking at a holistic set of problems and trying to come up with solutions. So you guys have issues with ease of doing business. Do get in touch with us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Email.
I'm extremely sorry, we need to wrap up this panel. So thank you very much for making it very interactive. Thank you very much for the panel as well, for your time and expertise shared. They'll be remaining for the rest of the evening, so you can definitely take up your issues one-on-one. Over to Hindi, is it? Please give a round of applause to the panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for a very interesting panel. So next up, you guys don't need to leave Heminder. So next up, Heminder and Ovidu will go over basically a basic presentation of Venture Frontier so you can understand a bit deeper and hopefully get involved.
So thank you everyone for joining us. We got a lot of very concrete questions as to how we are going to support entrepreneurship in Sri Lanka. What I want to say from the beginning, this is not easy. If it was easy, it was it would have been done, okay? So we are very aware that when we are trying to find few unicorns for Sri Lanka, it will be a very tough process where we all need to work together. What we will share here are just the starting point. It's just the starting point where we start right now. I think one of the strengths of Venture Frontier Lanka is that we have a process to incorporate feedback into our design. And a lot of the ideas that you see here, we came up with from actually working across multiple countries and from talking with Heminda about the concrete realities here. So in terms of the specifics of industry, one critical element is we came up with those industries in close coordination with Heminda and the local stakeholders. Of course, there are a lot of industries where you can focus, but we have to prioritize and try to find some concrete examples of entrepreneurs that we can help really quickly. That's the first part. The second part, you will see in our presentation that we have both a quantitative approach and a qualitative approach. Quantitative meaning we do want to encourage more Sri Lankans from the country and also from abroad to start new ventures, because we know it's a numbers game, right? So it's a reality, a global reality. And second, at the same time, look for the most promising Sri Lankan entrepreneurs that already exist now and work very strongly to organize a support system behind. So me and Heminda, we are co-founders on Venture Frontier Lanka. We are very grateful to our partners, CDB and LOLC and Daily Financial Times, and also for the location, Park Street Muse. You see that we have, the good news, we have a good number of partners. The area of improvement, we have a lot of space for logos. So if you have suggestions of other corporations that we should talk to and involve, of course we are all ears. So I will invite Heminda to say a few words at the beginning about, to start the presentation, and then we'll go deeper. And again, this is just the beginning of the conversation of our work together.
Yeah. Thanks, Ovidu. Well, you can't pronounce his name, but so we made him local by saying Ovidu. Yes. So in fact, he has been traveling to Sri Lanka, I think 6 times in last 6 months. So that's the sort of commitment that he has given to, formalize the entire process of Venture Frontier Lanka. So we have identified with various discussions with various groups, and we have identified 5 sectors. That is to start off. That is healthcare, education, leisure and tourism, education, and of course ICT as a underlying technology platform. So these are the 5 areas that we are initially looking at. And so it's, as I said, it's a long-term thing that we are looking at the commitment. And a lot of people ask the question about why don't they invest in us? Remember, no investor will invest in your idea. No investor will invest in your idea. All investors will invest in the entrepreneur, you. So if you can't prove yourself that you are committed, your entrepreneurial skills, nobody will invest in you, in your idea. So that's the sort of process that we are looking at. We have that process to identify the best entrepreneurial skills in the country. So just a snapshot here, I think one of the things that we can show is that we have 6.3 million internet users. What if we use those to use internet for the best cause, rather than what we saw last few days? So the other figures I think you can see. So it's just a starting point for the discussion, and these are some of the high-level KPIs that we have set already. But remember, this is not 1 year thing. This is a 4-year commitment that we have put in, and it can even be 8 years. So it's maybe we are going on 8 cohorts every year. Maybe Ovidu can explain from here onwards.
Yes. So remember when we spoke at the beginning that we have both a quantitative approach and also quality. So first of all, we will work on building a comprehensive social entrepreneurship network of actually bringing everyone. You are a small subset of the entrepreneurial potential of Sri Lanka, so we will actually build a community on Facebook. 2/3 will be from the country and 1/3 will be from the main countries where you have diaspora. And that is by design, because we want to identify very strong Sri Lankan entrepreneurs, both from the country and diaspora, and promote those examples to the diaspora. We want them to bring them closer. I have one statistic from Kenya, and I'm sure it's very relevant here as well. So in Kenya last year, the amount of resources sent by diaspora home was higher than the entire international development aid to Kenya, and they receive a lot of aid. So there is a lot of potential if we are able to build Venture Frontier Lanka together as a very concrete pipeline of good ventures that help the country to maybe attract some of the investments from the diaspora as well. So that's on the Facebook community. The Facebook community will function, will have three purposes. One will be a distribution network for us, where we'll distribute all the educational opportunities as well as the opportunities to take part in boot camps. Second, we do want to encourage the entrepreneurs to help one another, so it will be a peer-to-peer support network where actually people can share advices and how they solve problems. How did you register quicker? How did you handle the IP issues? Some of these issues have already been solved by the entrepreneurs, so we create a platform to allow them to support one another. And third will be crowdfunding. Moving to the key components of the platform of what we plan to provide. So the first one I mentioned is the Entrepreneurship Social and Alumni Network. Second part is a component that is focused on a national ideation, celebration, and education in entrepreneurship. The ideation part, I mentioned it earlier. We want to also work together to improve the quality of the ventures, to actually find a way to identify and nurture ideas that have potential for a global DNA. Companies that can actually grow into a global unicorn from Sri Lanka. And second, the celebration part, we heard a number of questions. It's important to already identify examples of successful entrepreneurs like Mr. Harsha Subasinghe that are actually pushing the frontiers of entrepreneurship locally, and also disseminate them as broad as possible in the country. The education part is actually working on a basic entrepreneurship curricula, and we will actually have a distribution network both through the Facebook as well as through partnership with universities, TV and radio stations, newspapers like Daily Financial Times. As we move the inner circle, we are moving into the quality entrepreneurship. For example, if you are at the beginning as an entrepreneur, you are curious about entrepreneur, you join our Facebook network. You start seeing examples of online webinars, and you sign up for some education sessions. You start to crystallize your idea, and to a certain point that actually you are ready to apply for a startup bootcamp competition, where actually Heminda will talk a little bit of what is happening at the startup bootcamps. If you already demonstrated that you have a market, you have customers, you have signs of revenue, signs of traction, you can apply for the National Startup Accelerator and the seed fund. Here we are looking to invest about 30K for 10 to 20 companies in the industries we mentioned. But for a period of 3 months we'll organize the accelerator. But what is even more critical is the support behind, of actually bringing people with operational support in those areas that Sri Lankan entrepreneurs need, and also market access support. And last stage, once you already conquered Sri Lankan market, but you do have potential, maybe you already started to expand regionally, our vision come year 2, year 3, is to raise an early stage venture fund in partnership with the likes of Asian Development Bank, IFC, and local private investors and companies, so that we can help those companies from Sri Lanka with global DNA to expand to Africa, Indonesia, Vietnam, some of the countries with applicability for the technologies from Sri Lanka.
So it's, I think, the entire, I think we mentioned that as well, this will be a PPP sort of formation. It's a private-public partnership, and also donors will come in. So that's what you call Venture Frontier Lanka. So again, we mentioned a couple of times, it's about, our tagline is build local and go global. So we will put extra focus on startups that can scale up in the global scene. How we do?
Yes, and here there were some questions about how we can help entrepreneurs scale up. Let's say you already demonstrated that you have a solid company, you already have revenue, and you have applicability. I mentioned earlier about the entrepreneurship ambassadors of Venture Frontier Lanka. We plan in the next few months to recruit one specific ambassador for each one of the hubs where you have diaspora abroad, and also plan a visit towards the end of the year, maybe for few startups from Sri Lanka, so that we can practically exemplify the quality of entrepreneurship in Sri Lanka, and also start building those bridges with the diaspora, so we can get them closer to what we are doing here in the country. Second part, I mentioned earlier about partnerships for the other programs I implemented, for example, with Consumer Electronics Show or TechCrunch. We have inroads and relationships with some of these larger platforms where we are actually bringing entrepreneurs to meet and discuss with next stage investors, and also maybe distribution channels for them. The next one is on ideation and disruption, talking about the quality of the ideas and increasing that quality. We also plan to connect Sri Lanka with the most disruptive innovation hubs in the industries that we mentioned. So we'll look around the world, who are the top countries in agriculture? Israel, Brazil, whoever is the top in agriculture. We have inroads there, and we will find ways, like the way we brought Melvin tonight from Malaysia and Korea. We will bring people with that level of expertise, and we'll also organize online webinars specifically for a broader distribution. Last, it's a network of mentors, technologies, and investors. So this is the part that OviBees Ventures will be bringing, and together with Heminda, he also has a really strong network in the region. So you will see when Heminda will present the startup bootcamps, we walk the talk, and we will be bringing people that actually have done it and build global companies and regional companies, and we'll bring the best of Sri Lanka as well. And at the intersection of those three categories of people, local, regional, and global, with the right entrepreneurial idea and entrepreneur, we hope to actually bring that prosperity that we are talking about. Yes.
So it's so I'll start with the program. Actually, it's I mentioned it's about 4-year program, or maybe it can go on for 8 years. But let's see what is lined up for the next 4 months. So what we will going to start is we are going to start entrepreneurship caravan, which is basically, I think, the example that we bring in when 1996 when we won the World Cup. The team, if you look at it, it was all the people who really, the cricketers who really, did really well were from the outstation. So we know that we want the diversity. We want to bring people not just from Colombo but all over the Sri Lanka. So we will send entrepreneurship caravan, finding all around Sri Lanka who are the best entrepreneurial talent, and we will go to Jaffna, we'll go to Bariklo, we'll go to Kandy, we'll go to South, we'll go to everywhere, and we'll try to find everyone from Sri Lanka who have the entrepreneurial mindset. And then we will have, this is just for the next 4 months, and then we will have this boot camp starting with Jaffna and Colombo, probably starting from May, and then we will have 2-day boot camps, maybe to find the best talent in that particular locality, and of course train them for 2 days, and then maybe find who are the best in that particular area. So that will be our next stage. And then we'll have the
the national challenge, which probably we'll do it in June, July, and we will bring the people from Jaffna, maybe Batticaloa, maybe wherever that is, and the best of the best startups, probably in a place in Colombo, and we will find the most talented, the best 30 startups, and of course then the next stages we have not mentioned here, but then after that the next stage is obviously an accelerator. So we will start with those best 30 startups, like a 3 months accelerator. So this is the activities lined up for the next 4 months. So we have the dates as also set up. Starting from, of course, we have the tomorrow, I think OviBees also invited, we'll have a session on design thinking. I think I'll welcome all of you to come at 5 p.m. at Royal College Union Skill Center. So Melvin, who was at the panel, will do that session. So I think I would like to, maybe whoever who think about, starting their startups, they can come to this session, and it will be one of the best session on design thinking that you can ever get in Sri Lanka.
So next we have the speakers that we already lined up from the international side. In all the startup bootcamps, we'll bring international, regional and local speakers who are very successful entrepreneurs and executives. We have a very strong bias for practitioners, people who have built companies themselves. We have, for example, on the right side, Natalie Ardianto. He was one of the top entrepreneurs from the GIST program. And for example, from Indonesia, when he won the competition, we organized at the global level, he was at 1 million in revenue. 4 years later, he was at 200 million revenue. And last year, he just sold the company to the largest Indonesian conglomerate in Indonesia. So he, in the leisure and tourism, he built like a Priceline aggregator where people can buy cheap tickets to travel. And what is the irony is that the gentleman near him, Jeff Hoffman, was the person who gave him the award in 2012. And Jeff Hoffman built Priceline.com, that is a $65 billion company. And it was interesting of passing the baton from one generation to the other. We have a very strong educator, Yambo from the National University of Singapore in entrepreneurship. Robert Van Zwieten, he was CEO and president of MPEA, is the Emerging Markets Private Equity Association that actually brings together all the private equity funds in the emerging markets, and he worked previously with ADB, and he is very aware of also LOLC. And Jim is one of the top experts, top 10 in leadership and management and team formation in general. So I already covered the social network till now. And also on the education side, we spoke about this as well. Yeah. On the right side, so this is an area we are looking to build partnerships for this year. Most of our efforts will be focused on for-profit entrepreneurs, but we would like also to build partnerships that will allow us to identify very meaningful social enterprises that are actually complementary to what we are doing. For example, there is an initiative that teaches women and girls how to code. That is very meaningful because it means bringing into the workforce and increasing potential productivity. That type of initiative we would like to encourage people to create. That I'm just using it as an example. And also use the Venture Frontier Lanka platform to help support, introduce to mentors, to potential funders, so on and so forth. And the Entrepreneurship Catalyst Award is actually looking across the country and finding people that transform the country through education in entrepreneurship, as to recognize and encourage more people to teach entrepreneurship in the country.
Yeah, just to start off, I think we have a global and local heavyweights in our advisory board. Of course, one person we need to add, Dr. Harsha Subasingh, already in the board of advisors. We have
Flash News.
Flash News. So we have Dumindra Ratnayaka, current chairman BOI. He's the first one to,
agree with us to come on board. And then we have Dr. Hans Vijay Surya, he agreed to come on board. And then I think Ovidu can explain, already explained most of the people here.
The other people in the board are Shari Losberg, who is senior lecturer at MIT Sloan School of Management. She worked very closely with Endeavor and also Axion in the selection of entrepreneurs. In our effort, we'll pay very close attention to select and have very merit-based criteria for everything that we will do. And her experience will help us a lot. And Chuck Easley, he's teaching entrepreneurship at Stanford School of Engineering. And he worked also very closely on the startup menu.
So one more thing, I think we are also on a startup mode. We are looking for people. So there are availability. I mean, there is for talent here. The best of the talent can join us. There are 3 vacancies already. So we are looking for project managers. We are looking for social media and content and community managers. So if anyone is interested or if anyone can nominate a person, just be in touch with us. So we are looking for the best talent in Sri Lanka to work for Venture Frontier Lanka. And of course, if you want to get involved, there are 3 ways of getting it. So we can be an entrepreneur who can get support from us. You can be a mentor. We are looking for local mentors. Of course, we are looking at real practitioners and real maybe entrepreneurs to support us. And also we are looking at partners at various scale. So these are the areas that you can get involved. Maybe Ovidu can help that.
Lastly, I want to thank our patron, Dr. Harsha Da Silva. I just looked at the picture we took in July last year. So actually we were able to bring together all these parts in I think less than 8 months. And I think it's critical that we are very lucky to have the support of the government and EDB and also LOLC as a partner. Mass media, Daily Financial Times, README, ISEC has helped. By the way, the disclaimer, I used to be president of ISEC a few years ago in Romania. And the support, key support from Park Street News and also Hazim with Event Horizon. Thank you very much, Hazim and Madeleine, for bringing the parts together. And Heminda, I think, is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Well done. Thank you. So I think finally you can reach to us on social media perhaps from tomorrow. And of course there are emails.
We already have about 1,200 likes on Facebook, which is great despite the ban. Yes, and join us, please subscribe to the newsletter. If there are any questions, either we can answer now or we can answer over eating something. It's eating. We will do it over eating. So thanks everyone. Thank you again, and please join us tomorrow and also subscribe to our Facebook and our newsletters. Thank you again very much, and let's work together to build the first unicorn in Sri Lanka.
Thank you very much. Thanks.